Hello and welcome. Let's spend some time to consider what's unravelling in the northwest of Victoria.
Martin Colbert, you in your role as leader of the Dingo Focus Group for the West Wimmera Action Group, claim farmers were thrown under the bus with the lifting of the Dingo Non-Protection Order for Northwest Victoria in early 2024. But the government lifted the non-protection order because new science showed the northwest dingo population was at genuine risk of extinction. Isn't this just farmers refusing to accept that sometimes conservation has to come first? Yeah.
Thanks for the question. I will do my best to bring you up to speed on the issue that has been decimating our landscape for over 2 years now and is only getting worse. If farmers disagreeing with conservation values was all it was, we wouldn't be having this conversation. The non-protection order was lifted on the 14th of March 2024, just days after Alan Bennett reported 25 sheep killed on his property. Around the same time, Animals Australia launched Supreme Court action against the Victorian government. Shortly after the government made the change in the northwest, that court case was discontinued. Farmers were told the ATCW permit system would be the safety valve. When Bennett applied for authority to trap and destroy one specific dingo on his own land, after DEECA's own inspection confirmed the damage, the permit was refused anyway. That's not conservation coming first. That's ordinary farmers being left with no workable pathway.
You keep saying the permit was refused despite confirmed damage, but the internal advice clearly showed this small inbred population could collapse. Why should one farmer's losses override the risk of losing an entire genetically distinct population?
That's a bold assertion that fails to recognise the broader consequences. I suggest you take a minute to consider the levels at which these governmental actions undermine the community's ability to operate within the legal norms. The law requires the decision maker to be satisfied that lethal control is necessary when genuine damage is occurring. The Bennett FOI file shows DEECA accepted the damage was real and that he had already tried non-lethal measures. An approved ATCW would have given him targeted, regulated authority to deal with one animal on his private property. Instead, it was refused on advice from a small, repeated circle of researchers and specialist advisors with clear dingo advocacy positions. We're a small community group of farmers and volunteers. We're up against the full resources of DEECA, who has now upped the stakes by engaging specialist government FOI lawyers to fight disclosure, and a narrow group of advisors whose views keep shaping these decisions. That's not a level playing field.
You talk about a small circle of advisors. That sounds like you're suggesting improper influence. Do you have evidence of that, or is this just frustration from losing the argument on the science?
I'm pointing to the pattern in the documents. The same narrow group of voices with established advocacy positions keeps providing the decisive advice, while practical, site-specific research from the actual farming country on this side of the fence is missing. International examples from Kenya, Namibia, North America and Spain were used. That's interesting, but it's not the same as doing the hard work on the back doorstep, where these decisions actually land on families trying to make a living. We're not a big, well-funded organisation. We're farmers and local volunteers asking basic questions about decisions that are destroying livelihoods.
The government has allocated a budget of over $2 million on non-lethal measures and is funding a 70-kilometre exclusion fence bordering the park. Isn't that the responsible, balanced response you keep demanding?
It's only a partial fix with deadly consequences, not much more than an admission of guilt to the whole failed legislation changes. Even with daily maintenance and monitoring, dingoes are still getting under and around the new fence. It protects 5 properties at significant taxpayer cost, but it simply shifts the problem onto neighbours who now face hundreds of thousands in private costs. Our analysis shows verified and projected losses for Bennett and 4 neighbours already around $3 million by October last year, inclusive of lost breeding capacity and production. Losses since then have exceeded that, not to mention the mental health toll of cleaning up after the attacks. Euthanizing livestock is always gut-wrenching. We're a small rural community being told to accept expensive, imperfect band-aids, while the root problem, a broken permit pathway, is not fixed.
You've made multiple Freedom of Information requests that have been delayed, but government departments get thousands of these requests. Isn't it possible they're just genuinely resource constrained rather than deliberately stonewalling? You've also pushed hard on the Little Desert Lodge investigation. What's that about?
We narrowed scopes, granted extensions, and cooperated at every step. Yet DEECA has brought in specialist government FOI lawyers whose job it is to fight disclosure on procedural grounds. The Little Desert Lodge FOI is a perfect example. After the January 2025 fire, a government-permitted dingo holding and breeding facility was revealed on the edge of the national park. There were discrepancies in reported numbers and serious community concerns about potential escapes. That FOI request has faced extreme delays. We're not a big legal team. We're volunteers and farmers spending hundreds of hours just trying to get basic information about decisions and incidents that affect our families and our neighbours. The public can now see the imbalance.
At the end of the day, this is still a democracy. If farmers don't like the policy, they can vote or lobby. Why frame this as some kind of conspiracy against rural people?
Hang on a second there. You might not have been listening, because the sequence is now clear for everyone to see. Legal pressure from a well-resourced advocacy group leads to government changing rules overnight, leads to court case dropped, leads to farmers left with a permit system that exists on paper but delivers nothing in practice. A small circle of advisors carries decisive weight. Specialist government lawyers are deployed when we ask for the documents. Expensive, imperfect fences are built as a band-aid, and a small community of farmers and volunteers is left fighting the full machinery of the state just to get answers about incidents like the lodge fire and breeding facility. We're not asking for special treatment. We're asking for the law Parliament passed to be applied properly, with evidence that matches the ground we actually farm, and with basic transparency. The underdog shouldn't have to fight this hard just to be heard. This is a very unfortunate example of justice denied.
That's an interesting dive into an issue that's having deadly consequences. Martin and the broader West Wimmera Action Group, thank you.